Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. Well, what's interesting today is that the market had a bit of a recovery, but there's a bit of a second dip right now, and we are closer to the low point, especially on the bank Nifty. Now, what is interesting is if you see the IT, and we referred to it in the morning that perhaps IT today would be the pocket to be in. That's outperforming, but if you just see the intraday chart of Infosys, that's making lows of the morning. Just pull out that stock intraday. I think we'll have soon an update from Rima as well on that. There's some very little promoter selling which has happened over the last week on Infosys. I think Shibulal selling some of his personal holding, and that's creating a bit of a overhang on the stock, and that's why the Infosys stock is making fresh lows right now. In fact, as we speak, that stock is down about 1/3 of 1%. So that's a stock which is getting impacted. But Ashwini Gujral and Prakash Kaba are back with us to discuss the market technicals and fresh trades right now. Ashwini, are you sticking with your long positions on Bank Nifty, or have you been stopped out? What's the call from here now?
See, my call is very simple, that all the depression and negativity is there. Now, what happens if something changes for the positive? And these sort of events, some central bank does something, Turkey does something, EU does something, and suddenly, you have massive amounts of short covering. So obviously buy, but buy with a stop, and that stop has to be decent. You can't, do this with a 20-point stop. So put your stop at 11,300 maybe, and on the bank Nifty, maybe 50-70 points from here, and then hope that something turns around. If it does, you have a big trade on the upside. If it doesn't turn, you have your 50-70 point risk. But the entire issue is that there is no value in incrementally going short. So the idea should be that you buy into Nifty, bank Nifty, and hope for a turnaround. This is not a prediction, a strategy where you've already come off trading near supports, and maybe an intraday bounce is due. Having said that, Tata Elxsi is a buy with a stop of 1390, target of 1435. Titan is a buy with a stop of 910, target of 945. And Mahindra & Mahindra is a buy with a stop of 940, target of 975.
Okay, well, if this is the opportunity that you were looking for to buy individual stocks on a dip, let's find out what are the stocks to look at. Prakash Gaba is also with us. Prakash, for a long-term investor, if they're looking to buy into this dip, what are the stocks that you would recommend? And as well as for trade today, what would you be buying?
I think with long-term investors, I would look at pharma. Looks like pharma is in the process of bottoming out. So for the today's trade, I think I'd like to have two stocks in my mind. One is Hero Motors. That looks good to me. Very good chance Hero Motors can climb to around 3,350 zones. Stop below 3,275 should be fine. And ITC has shown some good, strong support in the vicinity. It's given a beautiful breakout. I think it should continue up. Target on the upside for the day perhaps could be 312, stop below 304. I don't see much downside on Nifty because it's not going down, it's just holding out. So maybe we could see a bounce in Nifty as well.
Okay. Thanks for that, Prakash. Ashwini, any individual banks?
See, individual banks, I think you should try to slowly get back into these PSU banks and corporate lenders, etc. That's where the strength is. Slowly means, you start buy say 25%, 50%, and then wait for that turnaround. I would think, that turnaround could be swifter than people are anticipating. If you get 2 or 3 big downside days, people who are buying these stocks, in a rush a few days back are likely to come back, much higher than previous lows.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining us. Let's now talk about some companies and the numbers that they delivered. Sun TV delivered a very strong quarter. It's a top-down beat driven by the big move in the IPL business. For the IPL business alone, the top line has grown almost 2 times to nearly 400 crores. S.L. Narayanan, the group CFO of the Sun Group, joins in after a long hiatus. Mr. Narayanan, good morning and thanks so much for joining us and speaking about the business itself. I wanted to start by asking you about the ad revenue growth, which was almost almost 18% on a year-on-year basis, with the non-Tamil channels seeing a faster growth. Is this a run rate that is sustainable, and what is the trajectory looking like? How is the demand situation? What kind of market share growth do you see? And on the ad revenues itself, what are you forecasting?
Good morning. It's great to be back on your channel. I agree it's been quite a while, but it's a fantastic time for us to be back talking to the media. You're right, advertisement revenues have been extremely buoyant in the first quarter, but we must also remember the same time last year things were not looking very optimistic, and therefore on a low base this has been possible. But we do believe that a similar growth is possible for the second quarter, which is up to September. And beyond 1st October, we wouldn't like to make any guesses at this point in time. But I do believe there is extremely strong sentiment for media spending at this time. And we do look forward to a fairly strong number on ad revenue growth for the second half as well.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Narayan. Pleasure having you with us. This high of 20% comes on the back of what was a contracting quarter. You know, if you count year on year, last quarter you contracted by 4%. In fact, FY17 itself was rather unkind with a lot of ad revenue contraction. Are you saying that you're coming back to the 16 levels, or is this looking like something else, a much better performance in terms of ad revenue only?
Advertisement is basically driven by overall business confidence in the economy. We have seen a lot of consumer-facing sectors coming back with buoyancy. So our business is essentially a function of that kind of a mood. So as we complete the first half, I think the current run rate will be maintained. And once we get into the festival season starting 1st October, given the fact that the economy is on a rebound and we don't have the dampeners like the after effects of demonetization or the run up to the GST, we think this year is going to be a lot better than last year.
Oh, we're seeing that specifically in the turnaround for the IPL business. I mean, from a loss of 21 crores, it's now a profit of almost 200 crores. What has changed dramatically over the last few quarters, and what do you expect the trajectory will look like?
Yeah, this is something that we knew will always be a money spinner. In fact, 5 years ago, I had to really strain myself to tell your viewers that it is not such a bad investment. So as the years go by, sports franchises become extremely valuable. And that's because the media rights and the sponsorship rights only keep going higher and higher. So if you look at the comparables in the West, whether it's National Basketball Association or English Premier League or any of those top-rated sports franchises, I mean, the kind of run-up that's happened in their revenues and their margins is absolutely exponential. And India is the largest market for the game of cricket, and the best and the brightest want to come and play here. So it is not surprising that IPL has turned around the way it has. And on top of that, we also were a new team 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. I think 2013 was our first year. And barring 2014, we've always been in playoffs, and we won it in 2016, and we were runner-up in 2018. So it is not surprising that the brand Sunrisers Hyderabad is also now ranking with the top draw in the league. So our local sponsorship revenues are also looking very strong. Gate sales have improved because most of the games were sold out. And on top of it, the media rights and the...
Can you give us some numbers? I mean, 400 crores of revenues is what you've seen this time from the IPL vertical. Over the next 1 year, what kind of growth could you see?
See, with every passing year, the sponsorship rights only become more and more because as the years go by, the distribution becomes stronger because that's the way the deals are structured between the advertisers and BCCI. I won't be able to say any specific numbers because I really don't know what is the some contracts are public knowledge, like what Star paid for the broadcasting and what Vivo paid for the central sponsorship title. I wouldn't be able to give much color on the breakdown, but suffice it to say that IPL is now very well settled and it's a very stable revenue and it's going to be only growing from year to year.
Okay, Mr. Narayan, now actually, your three streams of revenue, subscription, advertisement and IPL are all one-third, 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 so to speak, broadly. Which will be the one that will give you the alpha?
No, IPL is not one-third because it looks like it's one-third because all revenues are captured in the June quarter. It is still a very small proportion of the overall pie. But I think a subscription is the one which is going to deliver the alpha because as you may know, Tamil Nadu is the last man standing on the digitization landscape. Barring this state, almost the whole country has gone digital. We believe another 8.5 to 9 million analog connections are up for grabs. And digitization is an idea that has got all positives. It is in line with the desire to bring all revenues under the tax net. Some of these local cable operators were not disclosing the number of homes that were being served. So this is in everybody's interest to make it happen. So finally it's happening in Tamil Nadu, which is the #1 state in terms of TV penetration and also the #1 state for us in terms of our market share.
Yeah.
So we think that subscription is going to be the game changer for us this year.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to ask you about subscription because there is still an untapped potential as far as digitization of subscribers is concerned. What kind of growth do you see there? How many subscribers are yet to be digitized and how can Sun TV benefit?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think the number is somewhere between 8.5 to 9 million. This is a number which we will never know till the digitization is completed because there's been massive underreporting in the past. So I would only hope that we do this sooner than later. But given the pace at which it's happening, because there's lots of issues, let's not go into those. I think by end of the current financial year, the state would have been completely digitized.
Okay. Well, two quick...
We have seen a massive ramp up in the last few months and it's continuing.
Okay. Two very quick questions but unrelated. One, you said the entire IPL revenue is upfront, so we shouldn't expect anything in that heading in quarters 2, 3 and 4?
Yeah, there may be a little bit coming because, it's also, ideally it should all happen in one quarter, which is why we also book all the costs in one quarter. But there may be some trickle-down revenue. Sometimes, it comes even in the September or December quarter. But that will be very, very marginal.
Okay,
it won't move the needle.
Yeah, and finally, when I started reporting, I used to, absolutely gasp at Sun TV's margins. It used to be 80, 85, and even when it dipped, it would be 75, 77. Do you get there at all, Mr. Narayan?
I'd love to, but we need to get real because the earlier situation was because of our business model. If you recall, most of the content was sourced on a consideration which was airtime. So if somebody gave us 24 minutes of content, we gave them 4 minutes of airtime and we kept 2 minutes for ourselves. So the 2 minutes that we sold had no cost of sales, whereas the 4 minutes that the independent producers sold didn't come into our books. So mathematically, it looked like, the margins were extremely high. But as the business model has now gotten changed to, commissioning of our programs, the margins have fallen a bit. But I think in the long run, our shareholders are best served when we have a very strong momentum in bottom line growth, and which is what we are striving to do now.
Okay, yes, you have served them this time with a dividend as well. I'm sure they are happy. Thank you very much, Mr. Narayan, for joining us with your thoughts and with your guesstimates on how the year might pan out. We have to take a quick break, and thereafter, once again, currencies and commodities and how they are reacting to this big global turmoil. Manisha Gupta in a minute. Welcome back. Currencies and commodities, how have the markets opened and how are they reacting to the global turmoil? Manisha is here. Good morning, Manisha, again.
Hi, thank you so much for that, Lata. Well, starting with the global markets first, and the Indian markets are reacting quite differently. If you look at the crude oil prices in the global markets, we are trading quite flat, but it is nearly a percentage point of decline in the Indian rupee that has taken the calculations higher by nearly 0.5%. So the crude oil prices really are tackling with lots of fundamentals. On one side, you have the Iran sanctions, which will take 1 to 1.5 million barrels per day off markets from the third quarter of this year. And on the other side, there are estimates that 2019 demand can be on the better side. So that, of course, is positive. But on the other side, you also are looking at the fact that the supplies especially from US seem to be increasing, because the rig count has gained up by nearly 10 to 859, which is the highest since March 2015. And that seems to be weighing on to the prices right now. The gold and silver as well continues to decline, even as the safe haven currencies are doing well. So you have the US dollar, Swiss franc, Japanese yen, all of that trading in the positive. We haven't seen that come in for gold prices, just about holding $1,205 per ounce in the international markets, and that's nearly a 2018 lows. But the Indian markets clearly looking at the rupee calculations, and that's what has cushioned the decline here. And you are looking at green into the markets here. We are back above 38,000, especially in case of silver prices, and that should be positive on the charts for that one. The base metal prices also are in the similar line. The international markets have seen a decline. If you look at the copper and the aluminum prices, they are trading at a 2-week lows in the Shanghai markets. But the Indian prices, as I've been telling you, have been supportive. Also, the steel prices continue to do good. We are holding around those 6-year highs for an 8th straight day today. And that's exactly the reason you have seen the steel ingredients do good for themselves. Nickel and zinc trading in positive because of that. The lead inventories have been increasing, and that is the reason you have seen pressure come in for this space. But as you've been saying, it really is going to be about the currency markets, and the next cues really would come in from that. In the meanwhile, it's a sell on these upticks coming in from Anand Rathi. For silver prices, they expect the prices to decline up to 37,850. They also have a sell call in the energy space. Natural gas prices, they expect to decline up to 201. And they have a sell call continuing in case of the base metal prices also. Their pick is zinc here with 175.5 as a target for today.
Okay, Manisha, thanks a lot for that. But the stock of the moment definitely is United Breweries. It's up almost 5% after a good set of numbers coming in. Well, it was a really good quarter for United Breweries. They saw revenue growth of 11.5%. The EBITDA margins have substantially improved. Shekhar Ramamurthy is with us. By the way, the stock is surging now, up about 5-odd%. Shekhar, good morning. Tell us about the volume growth, this 12% level that you've seen this time. What has led to it, and what kind of a volume run rate can you maintain by the end of the fiscal?
Good morning. The part of the volume growth that you've seen first quarter of this year is because the comparator last year first quarter was weak, because if you recollect, we had the highway ban in many states in the first quarter. That was one. Two, the industry is grown in some markets like UP. So because of the change in the route to market. However, for UB, that has not been a significant upside in volume because we have ran out of capacity in UP. So we couldn't fully participate. But apart from the fact that the highway ban has gone away, there has been a broad-based growth across markets, barring West Bengal, as we have mentioned, where the impact of the steep hike in duty in January is still being felt. The industry in Bengal is down almost 40–45%.
Okay. Good morning, Shekhar. Good to have you with us. Can you then tell us what is the actual number of cases you sold in the first quarter?
It's 12% more than last year first quarter.
No, I'll tell you why I'm asking you. I'll tell you why I'm asking you,
we don't
because
normally put it out.
No, I'll tell you why. Okay, give me some more color then. You know, you had last year...
I'll tell you. What I'll give you the number.
Sure.
What I'll give you the number.
Sure. Go ahead.
It's you know, we count it in cases. It's around 56, 57 million cases.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking you is last year at several points in time, you all were contracting. You know, you were contracting the third quarter, fourth quarter, FY17, and the first quarter of FY18 as well. So would you say that with this 56 million, you're coming to an average of FY16 volumes? Are you just wiping out the disruption?
No. Just to put it in perspective, UB had not contracted volume. The industry was flat or shrinking. We constantly kept adding volumes, but our volume growth was modest, low single digit. So that's one. I'd like to put the record straight that we never lost volume at any year. Having said that, the industry was flat. Industry has come back to growth. No, our quarter is much better than the previous quarters.
Okay, sorry, no, you were telling us
12% above last year, and last year also was a bit of a growth.
Okay, no, if you take the annual averages...
I don't recall that because...
okay, let me just finish my question. If you take the annual averages, FY16, FY17, FY18, then how does this 56 million compare? What is a CAGR? Are you growing at 5%, 6%, 10%?
Yeah, it'll be that mid-single digit,
okay,
which I've been saying over the last couple of quarters. So so if this continues to be like this, the average growth could go up. But in the medium term, we still see mid-single digit industry growth.
Sure.
Okay, so mid-single-digit industry growth is what you're looking at. You did mention that the industry grew in some markets like Uttar Pradesh, but you could not capitalize on that because of lower capacity. Will you be looking to raise your capacity anytime soon? And what kind of investments will you make? And what does the increased capacity look like? Say, how much would you raise your capacity to over the next 2 years?
Well, UP is complicated for us because we don't have a brewery of our own. We operate through a contract brewery. So any brewery expansion, any capacity expansion in our business is a minimum 12 to 18-month process. So what we seek to do in the short term is enable us to bring in stocks from other breweries, other states into UP in quarter 2, quarter 3, which we couldn't do in quarter 1 because every state, the demand was such that we couldn't bring stocks in. And enhanced capacities in UP will take at least 12 to 18 months. We're working on a couple of options. We're looking to see if our contract brewery can expand. We're looking to see if we can invest in the breweries in and around UP, which can increase our ability to supply into UP.
Okay. You've done well on margins, increased it substantially by about 250 basis points if I look at it year on year. Could you push up prices? And can you maintain a margin north of 21, develop on it?
Prices in our business are controlled, as you know. So I've always maintained that there are only a couple of ways in which we can push prices, and we constantly do that. One is increase the share of our super premium brands, and they are continuing to grow strong double-digit, 30-40% is the growth rate of Heineken and Ultra. Even our new brand, Kingfisher Storm, is growing very well. Apart from that, we have to increase the mix or the proportion of states which give us a higher margin, states like Maharashtra and Karnataka, and that's a work in progress. And third, of course, go to states which control our prices and request them to improve our prices. Telangana did it in quarter 1 this year, so that has been a help. So straightforward price increases in our business are not possible. There's not a linear, but the fact that, and you have seen over years that UB has always managed to increase its revenue profile, it's been on the back of premium brands and on the back of better state mix.
How long would it take for the state of Maharashtra and West Bengal to see a significant turnaround? And the fall that we've seen in West Bengal this time, is it at least less than what we've seen in the past few quarters?
Yeah. Maharashtra, let me address Maharashtra first. What we're seeing is Maharashtra outside Mumbai has come back to some growth. Mumbai is taking longer. West Bengal, we see a long haul because, it's a much more price-sensitive market. The prices went up by 30–40% from January. Industry has declined 40%. And whilst we are in dialogue with the state to moderate their tax increase, we have not been successful in that. And we see West Bengal to be at least a 1–1.5 year process in which time it will take for the industry to stop declining and perhaps optimistically come back to some modest growths.
Okay. Shekhar Ramurthy, it's always a pleasure having you with us. The markets are also enjoying the conversation. It looks like your stock is up about 5.5%. More importantly, there has been a decent recovery across the board. No, that's what happens when you talk about alcohol, perhaps. It's a bit of a recovery that certainly is evident in the mid-cap space. The Nifty Bank is still struggling. The IT stocks are the cynosure. It was always expected, but there's one boy who is not participating much, and that one's called Infosys. Rima is here to tell us what may be worrying that stock.
Hi Lata, thanks so much for that. So, well, it could be the fact that one of the promoters, Shibu Lal, had sold some stake in the company from a period of 8th to 10th of August, that's last week. So there is an official release which has come out of the Shibu Lal office and reported on the exchanges as well post-market hours on Friday, where they've said that Shibu Lal's family office has sold 1.6 million shares, which represents only 0.07% of the equity capital. These were sold in a period of 8th to 10th of August, and the monetization was done purely for personal reasons, which includes philanthropic reasons. Now, this is a very small stake. The promoter holding itself is about 12.9%, and the stake that we're talking about is 0.5% of the promoter holding. And the stock has done so well. Just in fact, this morning it hit a record level of 1,400 rupees per share. It's rallied more than 30% in 2018 itself. So it's a bit of a promoter stake, and that could be the reason for the overhang on the stock today.
All right. Thank you very much, Rima, for putting that into perspective. That's the only reason why Infosys is not participating. Look at Relcom. That stock also rising after, of course, news out on the exchanges that they have signed up for the sale of their spectrum and other assets to RelGeo. That means that deal will get consummated by August 27. That was a big worry for the banks. If it didn't get, then again, one wouldn't want an NCLT process. But this one looks like will be off the blocks. So for the moment, as we wind down on Bazaar, the currency markets are lower, but they have not plunged after their initial fall. So the dollar costs 69.50 thereabouts. It had gone to a low of 69.60. So it looks like the fall is arrested. Even if you looked at the Indonesian rupiah and the Filipino peso, there are not further losses that have happened after their initial gap down opening. And ditto for the equity markets as well. The other equity markets are down between 1.5% and 2%, but the Indian markets, which are already shed about 0.5%, are down less than are down around 0.5% now. It looks like the fall has happened and is arrested at this point in time. So there'll be interesting buys and sells coming up for you on Chartbusters in just a minute. Thanks for watching Bazaar.